You're listening to WOSD. I'm your host, Layla Palmer, and thank you for joining us for Part 2 of the Evolution of COMMBUYS. Be sure to listen to Part 1 of the Evolution of COMMBUYS, which is linked in the description box. In this episode, you will hear about the COMMBUYS user experience and the impact that the system had on organizations across the state of Massachusetts. First, we'll hear from Mike Phillips, an analytics lead here at OSD, who discusses how users across the state adopted COMMBUYS in their purchasing operations.
So some challenges I think that the group faced early on was user adoption. There was a predecessor system that had been stood up for 10 or so years. A lot of folks in the state were accustomed to that. And now they were being asked to learn a new system that will help them with their bid postings and their bid solicitations. And now they were expected to perform purchasing within the application. So that was a new aspect of COMMBUYS, creating catalogs and creating these master blankets that represent large agreements that both either OSD had negotiated for the benefit of eligible entities to go ahead and purchase from, or departmental contracts where the departments were starting to record purchase orders against established contracts they had. That was a new workflow for a lot of folks. Another great opportunity, I think, that became available with this software solution was to request quotes from statewide contract vendors. That was a concept that existed in the predecessor system. They called it freeform quotes or mini quotes. And that's a process that still now somewhat lives within COMMBUYS, where agencies can seek quote from authorized vendors on statewide contract for particular services or particular goods or, medium to large scale projects. So we've seen some success with that. And that's an area of function within the application that I don't think was available to folks prior to COMMBUYS coming onto the scene. Come about 2017, OSD had the opportunity to appeal to all municipalities within the state of Massachusetts to enroll as purchasers, so to speak, within COMMBUYS, look to COMMBUYS as their primary solution for posting their bid opportunities that met certain requirements. And they had the option to go ahead and utilize COMMBUYS for online response. We saw some moderate adoption of that. Agencies would instruct vendors to respond online and maybe get away from emailed bid responses or paper transactions going back and forth. So this was an opportunity for OSD to work with, all 351 cities and towns and have their purchasing users enabled in the application for not only bid posting, but also purchasing from statewide contracts. So that was a large outreach effort and a whole new audience to go ahead and educate on the programs and features of the application. Fast forward to 2019-ish, OSD had an opportunity to work with both the trial court, a large purchasing organization in the state, and also the MBTA. So there were two pretty significantly sized organizations we wanted to enable in the application. If we were to look at the application itself, it took some time to build all those user accounts, get all the passwords into the hands of the right individuals, but the COMMBUYS application was scalable enough where we could ramp up pretty quickly and support an organization that had, for example, 600 new purchasers and another one with 200. So this was a really great test of how well the organization of the users and the departments or business units that they work for can send through purchase orders in a regulated, approved manner. The COMMBUYS punch-out program, really is a companion to the statewide contracts that OSD issues for the most commonly bought goods in state government. We had one punch-out vendor, as far as I can recall, activated in 2014, our first year of business. And over time, our punch-out department, Kim McPhail, and some folks she's worked with over the years, have gotten us all the way up to, I think we're at 40 right now, vendors enabled across the system. Overall, I think that from the software provider that OSD partners with for PunchOut, we are by far and away have the largest number of enabled vendors of any client that uses this same piece of software. So I think that's a proud moment or a feather in OSD's cap. If we were to take an honest look at it, I do think we met a lot of challenges here. I learned a lot of lessons along the way. But overall, I think this is a success.
Next, Kim McPhail, OSD's Catalog Program Manager, will explain the COMMBUYS punch-out catalogs and how they have changed since the 2014 launch.
So, punch-out is a type of catalog that a statewide contract vendor has created to sell contract awarded items at negotiated prices. So, to access a punch-out catalog, you would access it through COMMBUYS, select their punch-out catalog. Then you would go to the vendor's website, add items to the cart. You would return the cart into COMMBUYS, create your requisition and or approval. With that, create a purchase order per your organizational requirements. How does it enhance procurement? Makes the buyer process simple and very easy. And I think also from a vendor perspective, if you have a large size catalog, you have a lot of price changes. If you're getting order entry inaccuracies, it helps standardize all of those issues because you're really automating the entire process. I think one of the key benefits is the ease of ordering and the accuracy of the ordering for the vendors. If people are interested in doing a punch out for vendors specifically to reach out to their contract managers in case there's a potential interest for their contract.
Next, Tatiana Swanson will share her past experiences with COMMBUYS as a procurement officer in Needham, Massachusetts.
My name is Tatiana Swanson. I am the Director of Human Resources and the former procurement officer for the town of Needham. And my major task or principal role with the town was to oversee the procurement processes that were completed by other departments in an effort to have not only compliance, but only best practices be a part of every single procurement and purchasing that we made as a town. So in Needham, we always looked for, strive to have a centralized process so that all departments knew exactly what the expectation was. Needham has had standardized forms for contracts, bids, procurements, purchasing, and all different kinds of contracting that have been standardized and were vetted by council. And so having one product that we could point to direct all of our purchasing through, there was one repository or directory for the vendors, for what you can buy through the catalogs, for all the categories, was really something that helped us boost that centralization ideal that we had for the town. And Needham really jumped on board with this program right away because we viewed it as a tool to create consistency and compliance in our processes. We immediately got in touch with WOSD. They were a huge help and really became a partner in trying to get us set up correctly to use it. It was a way for us to also use some of the tools that we had created for best practices in the financial system that we were also building at the same time, and taking some of those best practices and inputting them into the system. It allowed for us to tie up a purchase with a purchase order at the beginning of the process rather than the back end, which gave us more control and more ability to keep track of our spending. Now that we had all of the information for each of the contracts in one website that we could point to, it allowed us to expand our horizons, if you will, with the type of different vendors that we may have not done business with before.
Lastly, Rita Brousseau will discuss how she embraced COMMBUYS in her procurement role in Lawrence, Massachusetts.
My name is Rita Brousseau, and I was the Chief Procurement Officer for the City of Lawrence. I worked there for 35 years. My position was centralized purchasing, in that I oversaw all of the purchasing of supplies, services, construction, building of schools for the entire city. I was actually asked by the administration if I'd be interested in being one of the beta testers of the pilot program for COMMBUYS. They explained a little bit about what it was, not entirely. And I thought it would be something new, something challenging. And I thought the opportunity to be involved in something with the state that would give us a little bit more visibility was really a good idea. I think we were all under the impression that when you use a state contract, the price that was offered was the price. And being involved with so many people from COMMBUYS and getting to know the process, we realized we could negotiate downward. There were a lot of things that we didn't know about that I think we got to take advantage of by having that kind of one-on-one pilot program information, having everybody at our fingertips. I certainly find that there's a lot more outreach to vendors and to the buyers with regard to training. And I think the way we use state contract with the user guides, a lot more information is more streamlined to help guide us with the procurement process. And at the same time, the information is right at our fingertips with the user guide. I find the user guide to be very, very helpful. I honestly could tell you I could go on and on about state contract. I'm very, very pleased with the way things have come along in the last 10 years. I love that I have the ability to reach out to people and I know them by face now. So if we have questions, it's so easy to reach out. And sometimes they take on that responsibility of contacting the vendor and working out the issues that we might have. So I'm a big, big proponent of COMMBUYS.
This concludes part 2 of the Evolution of COMMBUYS. Thank you to Mike Phillips, Kim McPhail, Tatiana Swanson, and Rita Brousseau for providing their thoughts with the agency. Next, in part 3 of the Evolution of COMMBUYS, you will hear about the future of e-procurement. OSD looks forward to engaging with you on our social media and YouTube channels. Links to those are in the description box. To suggest ideas for future podcasts, email the team at osdoutreach@mass.gov. This podcast was produced, audio engineered, and edited by me, Layla Palmer. Thank you for joining us.